Hi and welcome to The Print. My name is Karanjeet Kaur. I'm a writer and an editor. Let's talk today about the unfortunate trend of foreign women tourists being assaulted in India. You might have heard about the British tourist who was sexually assaulted in Delhi, and just last week, an Israeli tourist who was attacked in Karnataka. The Israeli tourist and the homestay owner in Koppal, Karnataka, did everything right. They followed every conceivable safety precaution we demand of women in India. They traveled together, ensured trusted male companions were present. They arranged reliable accommodation, and they even had their own vehicles so they wouldn't have to ask strangers for a ride. They didn't venture into uncharted territories. Yet, a group of 3 men assaulted them anyway as they stargazed by the Tungabhadra river. The attackers were outnumbered by the group. Yet, they were able to overpower them and every rule that we pretend protects women in this country. They pushed the men accompanying the women into the canal, killing one of them. Over and over, we find ourselves returning to the same terrifying truth. No amount of privilege or precaution provides immunity from male violence in India. Women have to complete an exhausting obstacle course just to get through the day. Don't go here, don't wear that, don't travel then, don't trust anyone. And as a society, we are perfectly complacent, accepting the inevitability of sexual violence, especially against foreign women. What does it cost a nation when it becomes globally known as a paradise for predators? No Atithi Devo Bhava campaign can compete with the harrowing accounts of harassment shared by international visitors. Now, the Karnataka atrocity is a continuation of India's failure to confront a culture of impunity that rules public life. We can calculate the economic cost of lost tourism, but the reputational damage is immeasurable. Every assault that foreign women carry home rewrites the India story. Their testimonies, shared in Reddit warnings and viral social media posts, reveal what our tourism brochures never will. In March 2024, a Brazilian Spanish travel influencer, camping with her husband in Dumka, Jharkhand, was gang raped by 7 men. She'd said in an Instagram post that has now been deleted, "They have beaten us and robbed us, although not many things were taken, because what they wanted was to rape me." Her words punctured the fictions we tell ourselves, that these acts of terror are about robbery or misunderstanding or ignorance. Sifting through the attacks on women travelers from different countries is a depressing downward spiral. A middle-aged British tourist was raped in front of her partner on a Goan beach by a local masseuse in 2022. A Swiss tourist was gang raped during a cycling trip, and a South Korean national drugged and raped, both in Madhya Pradesh in 2013. An American woman, 31, gang raped and robbed in Manali, Himachal Pradesh, that same year. In 2016, a 25-year-old American teacher was drugged and raped in Delhi by 4 men, 2 of whom were employees of the tour company that she was with, and 2 others of the 5-star hotel that she was staying at. It took months for her to lodge an FIR. When she returned to India to identify her rapist, she said, "I was very excited when I came to India. It was my lifelong dream. But this problem the country has with rape and violence is a serious issue." This list extends back through many years, and it's like a relentless spool of collective trauma. Remember the distressing rape and murder of British teenager Scarlett Keeling in Goa in 2008? Keeling's mother, Fiona McEwen, had said then, the Indian authorities had put her family through hell. After a conviction finally came in 2019, 11 years after the teenager's death, McEwen had said about Goa, and by extension India, "It is still not safe until tourist murders are taken seriously." Each of these incidents shatters trust. These women came to India believing in our hospitality and left, at least the ones who were lucky enough to survive, carrying wounds that they will bear forever. Perhaps more damning than the violence itself is the near certainty that justice will remain elusive. As a report by The Hindu clarifies, data shows that most crimes committed against foreigners in India rarely reach the courts, and convictions are even rarer. They found that between 2016 and 2022, 148 rape cases involving foreign victims were recorded in India. Only 16 reached the courts. Only 7 ended in convictions. That is a 5% conviction rate. The message we send is clear. Your violation is not worthy of our justice system's attention. Unsurprisingly, this institutionalized indifference shapes how the world perceives us. The UK's travel advisory for India doesn't mince words when it says serious sexual attacks involving both Indian and foreign nationals have been reported. British women have been victims of sexual assault, including rape, in multiple states in India. The advisory warns women to avoid isolated areas, including beaches, when alone at any time of day. The US advisory is even more blunt and opens with, Indian authorities report that rape is one of the fastest growing crimes in India. Violent crime, such as sexual assault, has happened at tourist sites and other locations. Australia goes a step further and cautions women against traveling alone, even in major cities and tourist sites. However, more powerful than these government warnings are the raw testimonies of travelers themselves. The YouTube account Travel for Phoebe garnered over 306,000 views on her video titled, Is India Safe for Women? She recounted being mobbed and chased by men, once by a pack of 40, who were attempting to photograph her, harass her. All of this forced her to barricade herself in her hotel room for 3 days. She concluded the video with, I cannot tell you how relieved I was to be leaving India. A foreign female tourist body in India exists in a state of perpetual vulnerability. And that is just an extension of the long shadow that falls across half of our own population. Following the brutal Delhi gang rape in 2012, foreign female tourist arrivals plummeted by 35%. We counted this loss in empty hotel rooms and declining revenue. Now, the patriarchal machine of governance briefly acknowledged the economic inconvenience of our rape culture before returning to apathy. Yet, we have never attempted to calculate the true cost for a nation when the movement of its own women is severely restricted. The fiscal impact of gender violence should be calculated in lost potential. India's female labour force participation hovers at an abysmal 24%, far below the global average of 47%. This is in part due to the unpaid care work and lack of opportunities. But what about the omnipresent threat of violence that constrains our mobility, or our ability to work night shifts, or even commute to our workplaces? What about self-censorship? Since this is a language we seem to understand, these practical limitations systematically exclude women from economic participation, a loss of innovation, productivity, and growth. The McKinsey Global Institute estimates that advancing gender parity could add 770 billion to India's GDP by 2025. Instead, we tolerate a system where women's movement is stunted by constant negotiation with potential violence. When a woman's world shrinks, we all inhabit a smaller, poorer country. The research is unambiguous. Integration of women into all levels of society correlates directly with economic development, political stability, and social cohesion. We continue to accept the narrative that women's safety is somehow separate from national progress. The Delhi and Karnataka attacks will fade from the headlines like all the others before it. But we cannot separate the fear foreign tourists feel from the constraints Indian women endure. Both stem from the same rotten root, and both exact costs we've barely begun to understand.